I know I'm really tiny, but I make a lot of big noises, and so I recommend if you don't have hearing protection, you might want to get some of that, and also eye protection. For the most part, you'll probably be okay if you're in that area, but I will be using a wire brush at the end, and if you don't have eye protection, I definitely suggest stepping away at that point. So. And if you have any questions, I'll check in every once in a while and see how we're doing on that. So. I might do two, just to keep things interesting. If we have time.
I'm going to keep straightening it out as I go because I want a really nice, consistent taper throughout. And I'm going to go really small with the tip of this, so it's going to require a lot of control under that hammer. So one thing that I'm focusing on is like I'm mostly drawing out from the tip at this point. Like I have a pretty nice transition and I don't want a really dramatic taper at the back end of the spider legs because I want to have a lot of mass at the end. So I'm really just trying to pull the very end as thin as I can possibly get it under the hammer without completely smushing it. So that's the game. That's still not small enough, so I'm going to go even smaller at the end there. Try and keep it as straight as possible. when I'm working this small at the end, I know it looks really cold, but I'm actually just planishing it and trying to even that out. So I'm taking advantage of the fact that there's more heat being held back here, and I can have a little bit more opportunity to smooth that out, and that when I get to the end, I'm pulling it through and I'm maybe papering it out micro, but I'm not gonna like chunk off that end. You can actually have a lot of control with this, but easy to mix it up too. I forgot to ask you for a twisting wrench. Eventually. I'm gonna go one turn. Go on. All right, I'm pretty happy with the thickness at the end there, and so I'm just gonna do the rest on the anvil and just bring it to a point. So I'm just gonna work two sides of this. Try to get it as pointy as possible without hitting the anvil, ideally. I'll give it another heat for finesse. All right, so I'm just gonna try to sharpen my taper a little bit. Bring that to a nice point. I'm going to be doing some material removal, so I'm really happy with the thickness of the material. Gives me a little bit to work with, but not having to do too much grinding. So I'm just going to straighten it out as best I can, and then I'm going to try to let it cool down a little bit. I'm not going to quench it, because if I quench it, I'm not going to be able to grind it. It's going to be really hardened from that. So I'm going to give it a few minutes, and then I'm going to mark my different segments, and I'm actually going to cut those in with a cutting wheel as opposed to fullering them, because I don't really want to elongate the material, and I don't want it to get elongated in a different way. Like, I've found that if I use a fuller, I tend to move the material this way, and then when you go to flip it and do it the opposite, I struggle with that all being super equal. So I like to work with really clean lines. And oftentimes I'm making a sculpture that the legs have to be uber precise in their length and where they're gonna land. And so I don't really want to have to do a lot of magical math on how much it's gonna grow. And I don't really like to manipulate the material after I get a really nice clean taper. I want that to be the geometry that I'm working with, as opposed to having some undercuts or weird stuff going on. That always messes me up. I'm basically setting myself up to have a really fun grind, because that's what I love to do. And it is. There'll be more opportunities to kind of straighten it out as I go, but I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm just going to let that cool off a little bit right here. Okay. Definitely got this piece thinner, which was kind of exhilarating. Give it one more heat. At my shop, I have a bucket of vermiculite that I'll usually put my hot parts in and just let them cool off. And I try to do a lot of my forging before lunch, and then go to lunch and everything's cooled off and easy for me to handle, but we'll roll with it. It'll be a little bit more exciting today this way. So. All right. I'm happy with that. All right, so I have 2 tapers, just in case, and maybe if we have extra time, I can do something weird with one, but this is ultimately like what I'm looking for, and then from here, it's a pretty heavy fabrication process with some bending. So I'm just gonna let those cool off for a minute. Does anybody have any questions so far? It's pretty basic. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I can't hear that well. I do, yeah. Yeah. I've been playing with a lot of different stocks for these legs. This is 1/2-inch square that we're using today. It really depends on the size of the creature. Everything kind of scales up from there. I was using 1-inch. I was passing around one that I did with 1-inch original starting stock. And thank you. I'm going to be building a piece of furniture and I'll probably use this, maybe something a little bit bigger. But if I do, I'm going to have to go to a friend's. I don't think my hammer will deal with it very well. I only have a 110-pound Samac, so 1 inch is kind of like pushing it.
What material is it mild?
It's mild.
Okay.
So even with mild steel, you notice enough of the difference in grinding that short file leg there?
Most definitely.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you'll see it in the sparks, right? You'll see just a fray of like fluffy, super soft sparks. But like, I want it to be buttery and easy as possible for grinding. So it does make a big difference. If you quench it right away, you're in trouble. I mean, you're just gonna waste abrasives.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. I'm gonna mark my segments on one of these guys. I'll start with my OG leg. Charlie, you got any? Actually, that's fine. Got a measuring tape? You have measuring tape? Thank you. I think I heard that on the podcast. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Charlie. As a general rule of thumb, I've been training with this creature designer, and there's a lot to absorb about like capturing the essence of a spider leg and it really looking lifelike. And I've sculpted like several hundred of them at this point, mostly in clay. And I've found that like the dimensionality and the relationship between the different segments is really important. So I was kind of going with human anatomy, where I was like, the bigger bone is longer, and then the next one is like shorter than that, and then it's the opposite with spiders. Their farmost appendage is definitely the longest by far. So gesture and like the way that you carve something and the way that it's curved are all really important, but the relationship between the different segments is really the thing that I've found that's the most mission critical to like capturing. How does this work if I need another length like this? Okay, don't break it. All right, so we're gonna leave some original starting stock. We'll go back to like, I don't know, we'll go back to like 18, because we need some room in the vise too. So I'm gonna do 2.5 inches for the first knuckle. No, I'm gonna do 2 for the first. and then 2.5 for the second, which is going to leave 13.5 inches for the final finger. It's like significantly more. So I think I have like a pair of pliers over here or something. I just want to turn this. I'm gonna do this with marker actually. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right, I'm going to cut these with a cutoff wheel. I'm going to cut in about 1/8 inch on each side, and then I'm going to decide how I'm going to bend it. One bend is going to go backwards, essentially how it is here. And then the other two are going to cut forward. And so I'm going to cut these out on the diamond. I'm going to be basically bending this on the diamond. I'm going to cut the V's out to bias the bend so that I have a lot of room and I don't have anything bumping in the way, and it's going to give me a nice tight bend. Do this. I'm going to do this in here like this. Just have to switch modes really quick. Do this. I just don't want to bend your ruler. We're going to see how this goes. Still good? You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see if this works now. I'm pretty intense about E, and I just have to wear one of these when I'm grinding, unfortunately. So, try to make it brief. And we'll see how it goes. We need the cord. Sweet, thank you. I'm gonna send my sparks that way. Is that okay? It's good. This may or may not work, I don't know. Okay. Welcome to the inside of my grinding mask. sparks are kind of fluffy coming off of that. So that's even from just the work hardening from the hammer, because I obviously didn't quench it. So if I quenched it, imagine how much worse it would have been. It makes a pretty big difference, in my opinion, anyways. So after I cut my lines in, it's probably pretty easy, I'm just gonna look at the piece. There's no way that I'll have like perfectly equal tapers, so I'm gonna make a decision about what I think looks the best, the two facades that look the best, and that's the diamond that I'm gonna bias when I do this. And then I'll just cut the little notches. And my tip is a little bent, but I think I want to go with this diamond here. So. All right. Cool. So I'm just cutting notches out to give myself the opportunity to bend back on itself. And then because I'm going to bend this the opposite direction, that one's on the other diamond. And I've given myself probably a needless amount of room, but I think I'll make this one a little extra dramatic. The more drama, the bigger the cut. This is something I do in my induction forge at home. And it's something I'm doing in the induction forge here as well. But this is an amazing use of this machine, is to just isolate very specific heat for bending purposes. I don't need to get it like crazy hot. And then if I'm bending that, then I'll just go ahead and flatten that back out. Interesting. I think that's the cold roll softer somehow. I don't want any of the bend to be what should kind of be like a bone, essentially. That'll work. Okay. You guys want to see that? They're basically bottoming out on each other. Like if I had mass there, I wouldn't have been able to make that work. And I was a little bit like trepidatious about cutting into the opposite sides, so it's a little harder to stretch than it should be. I could have been a little bit more aggressive about that, but it's okay. I think it actually looks nicer when you don't cut deeper, because you have that that kind of like in between segments, and that balance is like really hard to strike actually. So this might be my best one yet, honestly. So I'm just gonna heat up this third knuckle. And then we're gonna put a gentle curve in the rest of this, that way. And I have found that it's really challenging to keep this on the diamond perfectly when you're doing this. Actually, different topics. So it's possible that I'll have to heat it back up and twist it into like straight, essentially. That. Doesn't have to be crazy hot. It's probably advantageous to your cause if it's not crazy hot. You're just looking for a very gentle gesture. This one's got a really long toe, but I like it. Okay, so you've got your 3 segments. They're more or less stepping down in a nice taper. The next thing I'm gonna do, now that I have my bends, segments, everything's pretty straight. Somehow I managed not to twist that out of control. I'm gonna go in and with a rock wheel, I'm gonna set some contours into this. And I'm gonna do it for 2 reasons. I'm gonna do it because I wanna take the mill scale off before I add the welds. Because I have been experiencing a lot of like cold shuts and I wanna get like I want to have the greatest chances of penetration as I possibly can with the welds because I don't wanna keep digging out lines. But I'm also going to do it because it's going to give me a lot of information about where my welds need to be and how big they need to be and where I want them to begin and end. So it's going to get grindy in here. Apologies. But for me, a lot of the forging process has been about ways to make the grinding process easier because that's really my true love and passion is fabrication and grinding. So for me, I'm always questing for like the way to make that more fun. Not to not do it, just to make it more fun. Does anybody have any questions right now? No? Good. Did I get you at all? Okay. Trying to put my body in front of it. All right. All right, it's super sharp, but all I'm really doing is removing the mill scale, cupping, like giving a concave surface to basically every single one of those planes that were really flat, and breaking those corners a little bit. And I'm not worried about those grinder marks. I'm gonna go in with a 60 grit flat wheel to break down when I transition the welds. But I'm also gonna run over it with a burr and put deeper marks into it, so I don't really have to worry about that so much. So I'm just gonna draw on here so you guys can see like where I'm gonna put my welds And so the process is just building up material a little bit on each knuckle. And then from there, it's just about taking all of that down. I'm going to do something a little bit different on the back of the legs, because the back of an insect's legs usually have these flat spots that I'm going to grind in there. Start my weld a little bit lower so it looks like the thing can actually bend like a knee, you know? And I find that like working on the diamond with insect legs makes them look a lot more realistic. They're very triangular, and I feel like that is a lot easier to accomplish if you're working on the triangle, on the diamond. So my welds are gonna kind of do this dive like that on the outside. And then this part on the inside is going to be sanded flat, and the welds are going to start lower. So it's going to create like an interior hinge. Sure. Sure. Get a little rounded out. All right. Yeah. I probably don't need to tell you guys this, but don't look into the light. Ideally, do not look into the light. You guys watch this. Watch closely. Look carefully. It might not want to. Yeah. Oh, this is gonna be tough. Go extra wide on my head. All right. And awesome. Just for emotional support. All right, I'm just going to do some welding. Avert your eyes, but watch. Don't. Charlie, I love your welder. Nice welder.
build up a little bit more in those corners.
Not looking at the same thing. I just gotta everybody's not looking at the same thing. Yeah,
All right, I'm just noticing a few low points here, and I'm just going to address those now because I know they're going to be a problem. But that's pretty much it. Cool. Okay. So I think that's all I really need. It's actually more than I need. I know it's more than I need. I know I'm going to take some down, but it's de minimis. It's not so much work. And as you can see, there's still some raw material in there. I'm going to sand that into more of a V. But that's basically what I'm looking for. Sorry. It's hot. The radiant heat is a little. I do not. That probably doesn't come as a surprise. Yeah, so I'll just ramp those welds down with a 60 grit flap wheel, and that'll kind of be the second pass along all of the mother stock that's still there. And then from there, it's about just pushing the concavity of those surfaces. I do. I almost never TIG. I have one, but I don't use it very often. I think I've you know how you kind of establish your tolerances and then those are your tolerances? Well, I just account for a giant MIG bead on everything. And it kind of works, it's more advantageous to my cause in some ways. That might change at some point, but I don't know. Do we get more set in our ways as we get older? Probably. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go over this with flap wheel. Here. Do you guys have any questions? No? I have been using Klingspor for a long time, but Klingspor, they don't even have their brand on here. I am noticing a decline in their quality. I am currently looking for other abrasive suppliers. I still really like their cutoff wheels. Okay. I mean, that's a tough yeah, I mean, I had a fantastic mentor in the fabrication shop. We weren't doing things like this. And I think a lot of how I've come to it is how I work with clay, and then just sort of learning over time that a lot of the tools that I use for clay actually compute pretty equivalently to steel, especially when you start forging. Like I was saying before, as a pretty reluctant blacksmith, and fabricated for a long time, and once you start manipulating and heating up the metal, it's hard to not see it as the exact same thing as clay. Yeah, totally. Actually, it more reminds me of wax, like from my foundry work, because you're actually literally welding it together. But clay is like an easier metaphor in a lot of ways, but wax is probably more appropriate comparison. Okay, it's gonna get grindy again. If you're shouting out a question and I don't answer it, it's just I don't hear it. I don't hear out of one of my ears. So just keep sending it my way until I get the memo.
At least they'll be preheated.
Okay, it's very rough, and this is definitely the ugly phase, but now I'm gonna go in with a 60 grit sanding flat disc and just define that geometry. But the important part is that my welds are tethered to the mother material, and the rest is gonna get smoothed out with burrs. Sure? I just did the update and it totally, cool, good. It's looking more finger-like. No. That's a bridge too far for me. Yeah. Do I ever have to hand sand them? I'm gonna go over the whole thing with a burr to give it a really weird texture. So it's not like I'm polishing it, you know. Then I'd be in real trouble right now. Still think I want to go down like this. Okay.
Cash out. There's the thought of getting a
All right. Nice. So I have all of my geometry and my planes exactly where I want them and need them. All of the transitions are nicely cleaned up to the extent that I'm worried about that. I would normally be patinaing this, so if there's little pits in there, like I'm not worrying about that at all because it's just gonna fall into the shadows. So really what's left to do is to go in with a ball burr and essentially take all of those different slightly flared and slightly fluted contours and just accentuate those centers of the planes by cutting grooves into all of the planes. And it's going to kind of finish out those welds that I brought down in that like trident formation. Because I was really only handling them with a flat plane. So there's still like a big part of the weld that needs to be resolved. But I'm using a 1/4 inch ball burr, and that's just gonna go away. And I brought those welds far enough down that I'm not gonna have to, I'm not gonna take away what I built up intentionally. So I'm just marking this out with a marker so you guys can see where I'm gonna go, and then I'm gonna do it. I'll probably go about 3/4 of the way down the talon at the end, and then leave the rest as is. But just to get a sense of what I'm gonna do next. And these are also gonna be sharp angular cuts that are gonna leave it in a very geometric state. And it's gonna leave these edges that are gonna look kind of weird. I don't think they would be necessarily weird if you were dealing with like a praying mantis or an insect or something. That actually might be advantageous to your cause to have these like weird piping edges to all of your geometry. But I'm gonna go in and break them once I do these cuts with a 1/4 inch pinecone burr, which is my favorite blending tool. You mean to not cut up the rice? No. Yeah, a lot of times, like this is gonna get cut and added to a sculpture. The sculpture, I will usually weld a round bar to the sculpture so I can keep holding it in a vise and turning it in every which way that I want to. I call them grabber bars. Yeah, I love welding a bar to something and just being able to hold it whatever height and whatever angle I want. And those vice marks, sometimes I leave them in just out of defiance, I think. But they don't usually look bad because I'm usually like chewing up the surface pretty good anyways. But sometimes if I'm feeling spicy, I'll just leave them in. Yeah. Or I'll take an old welding glove and use that to hold it. So those are going to be the cuts. And it's going to resolve all of those weird hold shuts where the welds end. We're figuring it out together. I love it. And this is why I love working with really thick stock. Like you could do really weird things. Like you could cut a groove in this way, and then you could go even deeper with a smaller burr the other way, and have all these weird, deepening textures as you go. I'm gonna keep it simple though, unless you guys want to watch me grind for a few more hours. How you doing? How's everybody's lungs feeling right now? Good? Okay. Am I good? Yeah. I'll just show you guys a few burrs since we're on the topic. This is my favorite, like, smoothing out burr. I mean, it is a pine cone, yeah. In my eyes, it's a pine cone. But it has a lot of different radiuses, so this is really great for just running over the surface of things. This can be a lot more aggressive. I mean, these things directly compute to, like, a fuller versus a ball peen. And then they even make them in really teeny tiny. And these are kind of my ride or dies. I have like 4 or 5 of these at my shop. No. Should I? Okay. Sounds good. I'm into that. Are those like the finger sanders, or they do other things? Yeah. I've always wanted one of those. Yeah. 32,000 RPMs. I recommend cutting the mandrel. Like the shanks are usually too long for these. It's a lot of torque on something like that. But they get a lot of work done. Yeah. I have ones that are 16th inch ball. And then I learned how to etch so I wouldn't have to do that anymore, like carving those lines. I have inverted cones too that are really awesome for cutting into certain tight areas, but right now I'm going to be using this ball. This is also, by the way, why I wear a bandana, so the shavings don't go down my shirt. It's just a hot tip. It might be the best advice I give anyone all day. All right, so we have all of our geometry, all of our facades are concave, and the only thing left to do is to smooth all of that out. And you could go as aggressive or as mellow as you want. I would just say to like set yourself up to remove, something. It looks weird, but it's gonna get all softened. I'm not worrying about every little pit because I sense that you guys don't want to watch me dig them out and weld them and grind them again. Unless I'm wrong. You guys have 4 more hours or? Okay, so at this point I'm just gonna smooth all of this out with the pine cone burr and then wire brush it, and that's pretty much it. I use McMaster car burrs. Yeah, and it's like, I just think that their burrs are really great. The double cut ones, I do the long life carbide ones. But especially when it comes to the pencil grinder, because it's a true 1/8" shank. If you try to buy cheap ones off of Amazon, you're gonna like crush the collet because it's never gonna be exactly an 1/8. So I feel like for the consistency of the collet's health, it matters a lot with the 1/8" shanks. But I haven't found a good place to sharpen them for me. Heard about this place in LA, but I don't know. Whoa. Huh? I'm okay. I'm just so thirsty. Am I doing on time? Oh, okay. Doing good. So you'll notice a few things, like with this burr, I'm gonna cover the whole surface. I want the whole thing to be homogeneous. I'm using it the non-aggressive way, so I'm letting it walk across the surface, and I'm letting it step all over every high point, and that's effectively how I get it to smooth out. I'm also using a relatively dull burr. If I were trying to like hog out welds, I would swap this for a new one. This is all about texturing and smoothing. So it's not an aggressive, like, bear down action.
Blessed.
Great.
right. So that just bumps everything. Careful, your eyes. It just breaks all of that hardness, softens everything out, bumps everything down. Thank you. And then all I'm gonna do is wire brush this and call it done. Yeah, you wanna feel it? It went from like razor sharp to like something you actually might wanna. Yeah, most definitely. All I'm gonna do is bump it down with a wire brush. They're black magic, yeah. No. Oh, sandblasted. I'm sorry. How could I forget? They're sandblasted. Yeah, it's Burr. Burr wire brush sandblast. Yeah. So I'm gonna wire brush this. This is like really, really bad for your eyes. If I put black magic on. You guys have any of that here? I mean, I don't. How are we how are we doing on time? We got not great. 3:30. Okay, I should probably wrap up. I'll wire brush it and then we can maybe do that on the side. I really like these, but I also have cup ones for my like a 90-degree pneumatic grinder. So since this doesn't have any like concave weird surfaces, it's really easy to use these. But if I were doing it on like a flower monster, you know, I need that to like have a lot of flex to get into all of those places. So I'll go with something that has more flex than this for sure. What do you mean? Yeah. Well, I actually, through this process, realized that starting with round is a lot easier to. I find that I want to end up with round for a spider leg. Their legs tend to get really round at the end, and that makes it a lot easier. So I'm only using square because I wanted to have as much control under that hammer as possible. And I was really nervous about messing up in front of you guys. But I've been using round with like really good results. Yeah. Yeah, I usually leave enough that I can grab it, and then I have been like slipping a sleeve on here. Like I've been using my my guillotine tool to like step down tube, and then I would slide that on, and then this will ultimately become just another interior knuckle. And then I'll put that on, trim them both, blind weld it from the back, and then weld that onto the spider body. I didn't do that with the creature that's in the other room. I started with square, and it was really annoying having to build up the weld to get it to like where I wanted it to be, because it just looked super square, you know? That was my mistake. I'll probably make it again. This is really dangerous if you don't have eye protection on. I'm just gonna say that last time. I'll do my best to make it quick. I was saying before, I sandblast it and then I do black magic. It's an amazing Sculpt Nouveau product. It's blackening for seal mostly. I don't think it goes well with non-ferrous, but they have a non-ferrous option. Sure? And then if I'm really feeling like I need to push the darks even further, I'll go in with the Smart Stain and add it to the depressions. And they make those in black and a bunch of colors. And the nice thing about their products is they stack really nicely on top. They're very compatible with one another. Oh, for sure. It's hot, but hot-ish. I know. And I've heard the hotter you work, like the more it'll smooth it out too, but I usually just work pretty cold. Out of the movies, into my mind, back into the movies. Yeah. A lot of things, I think. I grew up, did you ever see Stranger Things? I grew up on the abandoned Air Force base that was based on. Yeah. So I spent my childhood playing in the abandoned buildings. And it was also like, that abandoned Air Force base was surrounded by like swampy woods for miles and then the ocean on three sides. So and as like the daughter of a commercial fisherman, like we were just given carte blanche to like take boats out onto the ocean. So I spent a lot of my childhood catching frogs in the swamps and oh yeah, horseshoe crabs all over the place, and so yeah. I'm sure there's some psychological stuff going on there too, some trauma, but we'll keep it light because this is a hammer in. Any other questions? I am, yes. It's Leah Aripotch. It's Leah Aripotch. Yeah. No. Kinetic. That would be really fun. Yeah. I will consider it. I have a friend who's an amazing kinetic sculptor, and I'm sure if I went over there and told him I was finally ready to put a motor on something, he'd be jumping with joy. So, awesome. Oh yeah, this is the product that I blacken my stuff with. You guys want to take pictures of it? It's pretty easy to use. I'll just go over this with acetone, and then I use a used Scotch-Brite. I actually have one with me. And just go over the whole surface of it, and then rub it back. You neutralize it with water, so you just wipe it off with water. I don't recommend doing it hot. You can dilute it too if you want like a middle gray. So sometimes if I'm doing like a really complicated piece, I'll actually water the black magic down and treat it like charcoal, where I'll go with a mid-tone and then I'll pull the highlights out and push the darks with a Smart Stain. And then I use their Clear Guard sealant, which is also really nice. Yeah? Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Carly. I have a mess to clean up. And if you guys have any other questions, I'll be here all day. So thank you for watching. Thank you, sir.
Is Jonah around here? I think he ran away. Oh, he's over there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.